All right. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So we'll get started where everyone else does. As far as earliest childhood memories, what are we getting into?
My earliest favorite memory or my earliest childhood memory?
Just your earliest.
What
did we do?
Okay. So it's probably not a very positive memory. I think I was 3, and I was running outside, and I had gum in my mouth.
Okay.
Tripped.
Yeah.
Pancaked on the sidewalk and knocked myself out.
Wow.
Got the gum stuck in my throat. So choking, knocked out, the whole thing, and back, I'm old. So This is a long time ago. I wake up in the emergency room and I just remember the big light.
Okay.
Because I think in the old days, they just had like one big light in the ER, and it was shining down on me, and I was just all worried about my little ladybug outfit.
Okay.
That's it.
You must have been moving at 3 years old to get going.
I'm always moving, Lightbulb. I haven't stopped.
Yeah. So how was the response from the parents when
Freaking
that
out.
happened? Yeah.
Freaking out. Yeah. I guess my father found me, and we were heading out to grandma's.
Okay.
Getting in the car. I didn't quite make it. So he was pretty close behind.
Okay.
Close behind me. So brought me in. I think they got the gum out of my throat.
That's good.
I turned a regular color again, and then they took me to the hospital.
So from there, early start, headed to the emergency room, is there a certain talking to of like, hey, like relax a little bit, or they're just like, this is kind of what life's going to be?
I think it was more, this is what life is going to be.
Okay. So what was did we have frequent trips at a young age, or what were we getting into after that?
Yeah, I think so. I was athletic.
Yeah.
I was always doing something. I was crazy. So
at any point, or at what point we were like, hey, not every kid does this, or was there a point of like, hey, why are not the other kids doing these types of things?
Well, I'm one of 5,
Okay.
oldest of 5. So
Oldest of 5.
Oldest
Okay.
of 5. So everyone below me, I think, kind of filled in. Filled in those
This
shoes.
is what we're doing.
Yeah, so we were all kind of, a little bit accident prone.
So were you living on acreage? Was this in a small area?
Downers Grove.
Okay.
Suburb, suburbia.
Yeah.
Living, just in a house in a neighborhood.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's hard with 5 kids.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for mom to keep track of 5 kids.
Absolutely. So at what point were you allowed to just leave the house and then come back for dinner? Like what age?
You know
was
what?
that?
Back then, it was pretty early.
Okay.
I think I remember being maybe 7, 8. You
Nice.
just jump on your bike.
Yeah.
You go. I remember going down to downtown Downers Grove. There was a little pharmacy, and you could sit in the back of it on, like a little stool.
Okay.
And you could get a phosphate for 10 cents. I'm really aging myself.
Just getting after it. Just getting after it.
So, yeah, as long as you're home by dark.
Okay.
Can't do that these days.
Nope. So you mentioned our earliest good childhood memory. What was the first one that popped into your head?
So my mom, and I thought about this. I think she put us all in swimming because she didn't want us to drown. So she wanted us to learn how to swim.
That's smart.
So we were all swimmers, and we would be dropped off. We were all on the swim team.
Okay.
We would be dropped off at the pool for early morning swim practice. And I remember the steam rising above the water.
Okay.
Because the air was so cold.
Yeah.
And we'd get in, we'd do our practice, and then the pool had a couple different levels, and we'd go to the upper level and lay on the concrete and get hot chocolate and just warm up until the pool opened.
Yeah.
And then we were there all day, just messing around.
Right.
And if we had a meet that night, my mom would drive up dinner, and we'd have dinner, and then we'd have our swim meet, and
that sounds like a great day.
You know what? It was a fun life. It really was in the summers. It was a lot of fun.
So how did she pick swim? Was it just like, this is where you can be all day?
She swam,
Okay.
so it was kind of her thing. But I still firmly believe, she wanted us all safe.
Yeah. My mom said the reason you didn't do swimming, Alexander, was because it was so early in the morning. I didn't want to get up that early. And I was so surprised because she gets up at like 5:30 now to work out. I'm like, what are you doing? What's going on? So swimming Was there any stroke or anything that you enjoyed, or just anytime you were in the pool, you were pumped?
I was always enjoying being in the pool. It didn't really matter. But as a competitor, I loved the butterfly.
Okay.
That was my favorite.
I feel like that's the hardest.
For a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's a lot of coordination of, core and your feet and your arms.
Yeah.
I mean, I taught swim lessons for years.
Yeah.
And, when you're first teaching somebody, they just don't quite understand, like the movement and they're just kind of like they're kind of flopping around. So it is interesting to watch people try and learn it. So
was there any point while you started swimming that you noticed you either had more of an engine or more of a technique, or were you better than the kids, or did any of that come through?
I definitely was short distance. So I could go hard for, in swimming, 50 meters is short distance, and that's over in under 30 seconds. So,
okay. Yeah.
So it's a fast race. So I think I did better. I had more of that kind of an engine. I wasn't really a distance. Which is interesting because as I got older.
Yeah, I was saying, you have greatly improved the difficulty of what's needed there.
Yeah.
Other than swimming, did you have any other sports that you did growing up, or what type of activities
running,
did you enjoy?
I did a little bit of track. And again, same thing. I could run a 400 pretty fast, but put me in the mile and I just died.
Yeah. So when you are asked to run, do they just say, hey, what's your favorite event, or how do you pick and choose what you got to do?
I wasn't a great runner. I just remember in high school doing track, and I think they just kind of fit you in where they feel that you're going to be best, and they test you, okay, she can run pretty fast, or they time you at different things.
Gotcha.
And then I think after that, then it's when they split you up and train you more specifically to what you're going to do for the season.
Yeah, I remember in middle school, I did shot and disc and the 200 meter. I was like, these don't really add up, but we'll give it a shot. It is middle school, so that's fine. So what was the ages of your younger siblings?
So, I am the oldest. It's kind of a funny story. My first brother I'm a September baby.
Okay.
My first brother was born October.
Okay.
My mom got pregnant right away and had twins.
Oh, no.
Before I turned 4. So I was 3 years old and had 3 brothers by the time I turned 4.
That's a tight family right there. Wow.
So the boys were very, very close. They were almost like triplets.
Yeah.
I was 3 years older than them.
Okay.
3 to 4 years. And then my sister was born, she's 10 years younger than me.
Okay. So having those 3 younger brothers, what was the dynamic since you were still bigger and older and smarter?
They ganged up.
Okay.
It was definitely, 3 against 1. And it was, I think as a child, it was tough because I probably gained a lot of independence early on, not, because I wanted it, but because,
absolutely.
My parents were pretty busy.
Mm-hmm. They had 3 other kids that were babies.
Yeah.
As far as eating went, did you have to start making your meals in middle school or high school, or what did your family have
that's
for you?
one thing. I mean, and I feel like I was set up very well as a child. My mom was always, back then, I think nowadays, meals are a little different, but we had 3 squares.
Yeah.
You had a decent breakfast. It was usually oatmeal.
Okay.
And then we had a lunch, which was some kind of protein and carb and fruit and, maybe a cookie.
Yeah.
And then a dinner was definitely, a meat, a potato, and a salad. So she was very with our meals.
Now, with doing all this activity, was there ever a focus on aesthetics of I want to look this way, or the girls look this way, or did anything happen positive or negative in that direction?
I was pretty small.
Okay.
As a child, I was short. I was kind of tiny. I was always moving, so I don't think I really had a weight problem.
Yeah.
I feel like I didn't I feel bad for girls. You know, I look at some of the younger girls nowadays, or some of my friends and their daughters, and you know how they struggle with that. I feel like my mom kept us all very healthy, and I don't think she did it for reasons of, you know, I don't want them to be fat kids.
Right.
I just feel like we were active. I mean, we were always outside.
Yeah.
You know, we got an hour of TV a day.
Right.
We had our good food. You know, we were out running around. So, I think as I got older, you know, and, you know, get into college, you gain weight, you know, that's that whole thing. Then I started having to really.
So what was your relationship with food going through high school? Was it just, hey, this is food, I enjoy it? Or was there doesn't seem to be any negative, like, oh, I'm binge eating, or, oh, I'm sad, so I'm going to eat any of that?
I don't think I had that. I probably, as I got out of the house more and was, you know, more influenced by peers or friends, I ate more crap.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I used to ask these questions for clients and stuff like that because everyone's different, but it seems that the better the relationship you had with food, later on it's easier to deal with.
You're right. No, I 100% agree. Just with, you know, some of the training I've done with people, I totally agree.
Yeah, and it's funny because for my wife, she had all the food available. Her mom cooked and had sweets and all this stuff like that. She would never binge eat. She would just stop eating when she was full. And like me, I was restricted because I was allergic to so many stuff. So when I saw the sweets or I got it, I was like, we're going to binge on this. I'm full. I'm not going to listen to those cues at all. So the relationship I'm trying to work on with our daughter, like, I don't need to be super strict. Like, just, you're going to eat to fuel your body. And if you want to have the sweets, she stops eating sweets. And I just look at her like, how do you do that? Like, teach me. So from high school, what were your main sports or activities at that point? Swimming?
Yeah.
Okay.
I swam. So the season in high school was fall. And then, like, we did winter swimming at the local YMCA. And then sometimes there was a spring session somewhere, and then summer was just at the club where we would swim at.
Okay.
You know.
And what was there ever a time where you're like, hey, I'm going to want to take this to college, or like I'm excited about state?
Yes, but I was also kind of riddled with some shoulder issues at that point too. So it really wasn't something that was going to be my.
What does injury prevention look like at that time? I feel like there probably wasn't too much PT going on.
There wasn't. And so it was coming. It was up and coming.
Oh, okay.
You know, so in the mid 80s, I think physical therapy was really kind of gaining some ground. And honestly, that's kind of how I got involved with bodybuilding, because I got introduced to weight training.
Yeah.
And it was like,
So what was your first introduction to weight training? Was it in high school?
It was with swimming. So we did a lot of dry land work. They call it dry land, where you're working with bands and stuff. But then they kind of opened up the weight room to us a little bit, and it was like, this is just...
What got you going the most? Just you got that pump, or just...
I think a couple things. So I just enjoyed the workout. I really enjoyed the workout, but then I think I have a body type that gains muscle very quickly. So I started seeing muscle, and I'm like, this is pretty cool.
This is fantastic.
I kind of look like Wonder Woman.
Yeah. So was there any, because I know there's some gymnasts, and I've had some friends that when they're in high school, they didn't like having so much muscle. Did you ever have that issue, or you were all aboard? Like, I'm down for it.
I was never super muscular in high school. It was more after that that I really started getting into the weight training. Yeah. But like, I had calves. Okay. I had little caps, you know, on my shoulders. Yeah. And so I definitely had the potential.
Okay.
I think I had the genetics. Yeah. You know, so it was very easy once I did start getting into it to
So when you say the genetics, I know there is a... like, they know that the gene, how it works is your body is naturally suppressing the testosterone, and they use the cow in, I always say Sweden for whatever these studies are. That's a lie. But the cow that gets really massive, and they don't have, like, it's because their testosterone or whatever growth hormone is not being prevented. And then I had a guy on the podcast where he couldn't work out for a couple of years because his muscles were getting too big and his genes were such that like it wouldn't reduce whatever the growth hormone or whatever was. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like that's what you had going on?
No, I don't think so. Okay. I just feel like
you had a slight edge.
I had a slight edge. I think, just
little LeBron.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We'll take that.
Nothing crazy, but it just, I mean, I've done so much training with people and I see the struggles and I feel like I didn't have that much struggle.
Do you feel like it was also your background with swimming and the insane amount of volume that you did?
I think that could have been it. That could have been part of it. But then, kind of now thinking out loud.
Yeah.
Food.
Okay.
I mean, the only way to really truly gain decent muscle, and I without, literally probably taking a ton of steroids.
Yeah.
But even with steroids, you have to eat.
Right.
So I feel like maybe I just was eating the right things, that.
I think the latest thing I saw was you have to have at least in excess of 500 calories and like you need to have enough protein to rebuild whatever you're breaking. But that's still eating more. Like you have to, you got to put in some effort. I think that's what people don't understand.
It's having competed in bodybuilding. It's such a, people think it's, being in the gym and it's really not. Yeah. I mean, the gym's the easy part.
Well, especially if you enjoy it.
Right.
You love it.
Yeah. The gym is the easy part. It's the food.
Okay.
I mean, it's like your job.
So we're high school, our shoulders are hurting a little bit. We're loving the lifting journey. Senior year, have we already made a decision? What's going on from there? Like, what's our next step in life?
So I went to Illinois State for a little bit. And
is that the Cyclones?
Redbirds.
Redbirds. That's last two people have gone to ISU. Apparently, it's a good place to go.
It's just easy. It's 2 hours away.
Okay.
It's just easy.
Yeah.
So that's where I did my first bodybuilding show. That's where I met.
In college. That's quick.
Yeah.
Getting into it.
Yeah. So I had not much going on, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Took last. But that's where I met a really good friend of mine. She was dating this guy, Don. Don's brother was Dale.
Okay.
So that's kind of where
let's break down the introduction, because it's not like you're seeing a bodybuilding show on Instagram or anything or YouTube. How do you get in? Like, are you just hitting the gym and then so-and-so walks in? It's like, you should do bodybuilding.
Actually, I hit the gym because, again, I, kind of found this love of strength training and, brought it to when we were at ISU and we went and saw a couple shows and I was just like, oh, that's really cool.
What's it like going to a show?
It's, I mean, you're watching people on stage and barely nothing, just like bikinis for the girls and little tiny swim trunks for the boys.
Yeah. Hopefully it's not cold in there. That'd be tough.
Yeah. Interesting. And then you do all the mandatory poses, bicep pose, rear double bicep, front double bicep, chest, back, you show off all your muscles. And then you do a routine to music.
Okay.
And it just, I don't know, it just looked really, it really intrigued me. And I'm like, I want to do that. I'm going to do that.
Yeah. So is the purpose of, and I know there's a bunch of different classes, but the goal is to show off like who has the most muscle, who has the best shape, like break that down for me.
The hard thing about bodybuilding is it's kind of who's judging. So you can have a judge that wants, a certain look. You could have another judge that wants a different look. But in my eyes, and I think most judges, a true bodybuilder has, kind of an X frame.
Okay.
So they have the wide shoulders, they have the tiny waist, and then they have the, the sweep of the quads.
Yeah.
So you just have, what you call an X frame. Back when I did start this in the mid to late 80s, it was just bodybuilding.
Okay.
So you had different divisions. You had One division was MPC, which went by weight. So you had lightweight, middleweight, heavyweight. And then you had AAU, which I think went by height.
Okay.
So you had to be a certain height. So for me, the best way, as I got better at it, the best federation was MPC because I liked going, I was really a true middleweight.
Okay.
Like I did well in the middleweight division.
Do you know what that weight was?
I think it topped out at like 125, maybe.
That's middleweight?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think 125, 126. And then I think the low end was maybe like 117. And I was like 122. So I was a solid, when I was competing back then. Nowadays, you've got bikini, you've got figure, you've got wellness, you've got physique, you've got, it's crazy.
So what's the difference between like physique, wellness, and those types of...
So bikini, and again, I'm not a judge, and I know, if people are listening to this and they're judges, I could be totally off base, but I think bikini, they really want, not a ton of muscle, but just, so a very feminine looking upper body with a little bit of shape, like a nice shape to the shoulders. Not a huge six pack, just kind of like a thinner, a very thin, waist, not a big sweep on legs, but a butt. They want that butt lifted. They want it, toned. They want to see some tie-ins, from the hamstring to the glute. So it's very, very specific to that. If you get too much muscle and you're trying to do a bikini category, you're probably not going to do well. So then you move into figure, because now figure is kind of getting more into, more muscle, but still more feminine, still not crazy,
Gotcha.
Physique and bodybuilding, I think, are
More
going back
direction.
to that direction.
Okay.
I think they entered in a division called wellness because a lot of girls came from like soccer backgrounds where they have just big legs.
Okay.
Not huge upper bodies.
Yeah.
But just big legs, big glutes.
Yeah.
And so they made a division, I think, that kind of...
For all the ex-soccer ladies and volleyball players.
Yeah. Because, they're built.
Yeah.
They're impressive, but they just, their focus wasn't, on the upper body.
Do you think more categories is better just overall?
It's inclusive then, it gives everybody a chance.
Yeah.
I think for me personally, I think it'd be a nightmare to judge, it just seems like it would be hard,
Do they all compete at like the same shows, or do they have because I feel like that'd be a huge day.
It is.
Oh.
Yeah.
I feel like that might be a little bit of a hassle.
Yeah. So that's, kind of going back, 30 years. It was just nice. You had, 3 divisions, and you were out. Right. And it was, you go eat your pizza.
What was your first... so when you first go to a show, and then when's your first competition? What was that prep like?
It was not great because you're just winging it.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything. So I was never, again, at that point, I wasn't heavy or anything, but I definitely didn't need to lose the weight I lost.
Didn't need to lose
No,
it.
I think I just got too skinny,
Gotcha.
So, you're told to diet.
Yeah.
You're told to, get skinny, so, but I wasn't eating enough protein to support what I was trying to build. So It was a definite learning experience after that first show. So then I started, got to eat.
So at what point, did you feel like you were dialing it in? Was it like a couple years, 5 years?
It took me about 3 years. So I started competing, I think my first show was in 1986. And then I was just keeping it very local. And then in 1989, they have a few, they have the Illinois State, they had the Illinois Cup. I won the Illinois Cup in 1989.
Let's go.
So it was 3 to 4 years of, learning. And you still learn.
3 to 4 years. I feel like that's pretty quick.
It was, yeah, but It was, but see, that's where I feel like I had a little bit of advantage because I feel like once I learned how to eat for a bodybuilder, not just, general athletics, but just for bodybuilding, I was able to, get that muscle going pretty quickly.
So how did your weightlifting change from when you were first lifting to when you had it dialed in? Like, what did your splits
It was more
like?
specific. So we did, I trained 7 days a week. And I think I did like chest and tris, back and bis, shoulders, and legs. And then you just start over. So it was like
wherever it landed.
Exactly. And then fast forward when I did this again 3 years ago, so 30 years later, I did actually one of the same shows I ended with, which is kind of cool. I broke it up into shoulders twice a day, shoulders twice a week, legs twice a week, and then everything else just once a week.
So how did you know where to dial in your food at? Was it by a certain feeling? Did you feel dead all the time? Like, how do you even dial in the eating? Or you just know I got to eat as much as I can?
You hang out with people who you assume know what they're doing. But most of the people that I was hanging out with were bodybuilders and powerlifters. So they, did you eat? What are you eating? Where's your chicken?
Yeah.
So you literally walked around with just Tupperwares. You just had Tupperware everywhere. So I think you just kind of learned from that. I wasn't reading books. I didn't have a coach. I was just in the gym.
Yeah. You're just around it.
I was around it, and, same thing, with the lifting, you have a heavy set, someone's there to spot you, so it was just very...
Yeah. There wasn't a specific secret thing that was done. It was just putting in the work around the people that knew what they were doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, and it's like, if you watch anybody on social media, it's like, here's the perfect rep range, or here's the perfect sets. And like, when I talk to anybody, it's like, one, do you enjoy what you're doing? Okay, then keep doing that for a couple of years, and then you can get like super specific on stuff. But if you don't enjoy it and you don't learn along the way, like, you can't just be like, this is going to be the perfect thing, and I'm just going to do what other Chris Baumstead is doing. Am I saying his name right?
I think so.
Okay. Like, you can't just do what he's doing now. Like, it took him a little while to get there.
Well, and it's like anything. I don't care what sport you're in.
Right.
You have to get variety. You have to change things up. You plateau, and that's it. You're going to plateau.
So
you're not going to grow.
What did a day look like? Were you training 4 hours a day, eating 2 hours, and then did you have school, or what was going on?
So I was, at this point, I was working.
Okay.
And so I'd work, and then I'd go to the gym, and I was probably there 3 hours. Just, it was a lot. The volume was high.
Okay.
When you're in your 20s, that's the thing I noticed too. I don't need that volume.
Right.
My body can't handle that volume. So the volume was very high. So I could lift, shoulders for 3 hours.
My goodness.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's wild. So are you still down at ISU, or where are you?
No, so now I'm home.
Okay.
I'm home, and I'm training I had trained, there was like 3 main gyms I went to. Iron Works in Naperville.
Okay.
It's no longer there. Jaeger's in Lombard.
That sounds like a great name.
It was a great gym. It's no longer there. And then the Pump Room in Geneva, which is no longer there, but the guy who owned the Pump Room, I think, is the guy who owns all the powerhouses.
Okay.
So, it was funny because you're poor, and you just either do a drop in, or somebody and they let you in, or you just get the cheapest membership. But my main gym at that point was Ironworks in Naperville.
So set the scene for me, like when you walk in there, like what's it look like when you walk in? So
the gym, Ironworks, was pretty small, and they had a lot of powerlifters. Like, they had a lot of impressive powerlifters like that went on with world records and things like that.
Very
so
cool.
They were more of a powerlifting family that owned the gym, and That was their main focus. So you walk in and you got your front desk, and then, over to the right, you've got kind of all your setup, your incline bench, flat bench, cables, dumbbell racks, not a lot of machines, like, all the machines that you have in the gyms now, they didn't have a lot of those.
Yeah.
You had a big squat rack, and then across on the other side, there was like just deadlift and squat racks and things. So, more powerlifting. And
why do you think powerlifting was so big back then? Because I feel like it goes in waves, and I feel like at that point it was pretty big. And I can't really tell you. I think powerlifting and bodybuilding were pretty big. Yeah.
They kind of, I don't want to say they're a dinosaur, but they kind of did die off. And then, it's kind of come back with all these other categories. I don't know.
Was Arnold around that time? Was he just coming up? Was he just leaving?
No, he was, he was way earlier than that. He was in the 70s.
Gotcha.
Yeah. He was definitely, though, the, kind of the idol.
Gotcha.
But he wasn't like winning the Olympia. The Olympia is like the Olympics for bodybuilders.
Okay.
Powerlifting, I'm not sure how that federation works. I never did any powerlifting meets. I did powerlifting at the gym, but I never did any meets. But yeah, you just go in, you got your bag, you got your food, you go to the locker room, you change, and then you just hit it.
You just get after it. So after 3 years, we're winning state. Do we get sponsorships? Do we get a pat on the back? Like what?
You get a big trophy that's really heavy to carry off stage.
Nice.
Get big trophies. Now they do medals, which is much nicer.
Okay.
I found that, so that was 1989, and then I competed just kind of like at the state level, but I was just, kind of at the, I guess, top end of my weight group, and I could have gone to the national level, but I would have had to enhance.
Okay.
And I just didn't want to do that.
So what does, two-part question, what does enhancing look like in regards to like the specifics, and then what was your reason why you didn't want to enhance?
I didn't trust it. It was the drugs back then were like a lot of testosterone, a lot of growth hormone, a lot of just things that I didn't want to. I was 20 some years old.
Right.
I didn't really want to start putting that in my body, and you just don't know what it's going to do to you. And some of the women that, were doing it look really harsh.
Okay.
And it's just they have such chiseled faces, and the growth hormone back then was huge. And, these women are getting these huge foreheads, and, they just didn't look
So growth
feminine.
hormone just keeps things growing. Is that the sense, or?
I think so. And I am not knowledgeable about any kind of steroids, but I think everything grows. So it's not like you can just pick and choose.
Right.
I want my biceps bigger, I want my legs bigger, no, everything grows.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of scary.
So there was no pressure like at your local gyms or whoever was.
No.
Okay. That's nice.
No.
That's good to see.
No. It's a personal decision. It's, 90% of the people I trained with did them.
Okay.
But I had no desire.
And so for them, most of them were powerlifters? Were they also?
Yes.
Okay.
And bodybuilders.
Gotcha.
Yeah. They were both.
Was it mostly like the males doing it, or there was some females?
There were some females.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, if I want to compete at this level, not for me.
Yeah. So I saw, at a national level, it wasn't worth it. I just didn't feel like it was something I wanted to move forward with.
So are they getting paid well at a national level, or like what's the reason? Because I know for just like most sports in general, usually there's money involved. So you want to win. You want to enhance yourself.
Not until you're in the Olympia and you're winning the Olympia.
Okay.
Where you're winning maybe $50,000 or something like that.
Oh, okay. So
but
maybe paying enough for the enhancements.
That's one. But if you think about it, I think it takes, if you're already at a good point, you're looking at a year of training and even eating right and eating a lot is expensive, and just general supplements, is expensive, and your gym memberships are expensive, and your tanning and your posing, and so it gets very expensive. So if you think about it, and I again, don't quote me, I don't know if 50,000 was it, but it's not a lot of money,
right?
So it's just I never was close to that level. I never wanted to get to that level. That wasn't my goal. I think I went as far as I could, and I was fine. I was happy with it. What was
your favorite prep and then cut for a show? Do you have a time where it's like, hey, I have this dialed in, I'm having a great time, like mentally I'm still there, or was it like I'm gonna do it, like how were you mentally
when you're cutting, like when you're building, or you're just really starting to want to do a show, and you're eating right, and you're gaining good muscle, and you're working out? That's I think my favorite time, because you're losing weight, you're starting to chisel a little bit, you're really, when you get to that final prep where you're kind of down to the last, and it could be 4 weeks, it could be 6 weeks, it could be 8 weeks, it just kind of depends where you are at that time. It's brutal, because then you're like, then you're really cutting, and if you cut it too close, then you're starving yourself, and it's just, that's not fun.
What was the worst I guess mental or conversation you'd have with yourself with gearing up to her? Like, did you ever quit one because the cut was too bad, or how did you handle that?
I never quit one, but you definitely, and so a lot of my earlier shows, it was a lot of experimenting. Like for instance, the last week might be carb loading.
Okay.
It might be carb depleting. It might be sodium loading. It might, so everybody's different. And I kind of did things differently each show just to see how it would work out. So I remember one of my shows, I did total carb depletion. So I had no carbs. I think I was eating tomatoes, which might have little carbs, and turkey for like every meal. And
a week?
Yeah.
2 weeks?
A week.
Yeah. That's a lot.
So when you don't have carbs, your brain doesn't work right.
Yeah.
You really need carbs. I mean, this is the one thing I have learned through life is you don't cut carbs. I just wasn't functioning right. It's like I just, you'd walk around and you're like, well, what was I supposed to be doing?
Yeah.
So that part I didn't like. I don't like the dehydration too. You cut your water. It's kind of like being a wrestler.
So are you doing a bunch of water leading up to it, so your body's like, hey, I don't need to hold on to this, and then you cut it, or does that work?
Yeah. And again, it's different. Everybody's different. I've done it different ways. I've done it where I've drank a lot of water. You have to be careful with that too. You don't want to do hypernatremia or hyper.
I know hyperhidrosis is the one where you sweat too much, but I don't know. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's where you drink so much that you disrupt all the minerals and the electrolytes and everything in your system, and it could be deadly. So you don't want to do that. But I've done it where you drink a ton of water, for so many days out, and then you start cutting it so that maybe by 2 days out for the show, you're down to like half a gallon, and then you're down to a quarter of a gallon, and then you're doing nothing, for like a day. I've done it where you've cut it for 2 or 3 days. So yeah.
So you're just looking to dry out at that point?
You're looking, I think the cool thing about it is it's kind of scientific, because depending on your body, you might be someone who holds water, so you got to get that water out.
Okay.
Or you might be someone that needs a little bit of water with some carbs to pump the muscle up.
Gotcha.
So everybody just, it's just so different.
Yeah.
Some people go into shows and they're totally flat because they've done it wrong. Like they don't have enough something, whether that's water, whether that's carbs, whether that's...
What a bummer to go for a whole year or X amount of time.
Yeah. So you have to...
Bro, I thought you lifted. What happened?
And it's more, I think women struggle with this more just because, their bodies are so different. And
once a month, it's probably not a good time if the show lands on your cycle.
That can be, and most women lose that, because their body fat gets so low.
Okay.
So usually that's not a concern, but your body can still retain water, so it's just such a, it can be
have it easier.
It can be a crapshoot. You have to be careful with it. And when you do, you're taking diuretics sometimes, you're not, with diuretics, you're supposed to drink, but you're not drinking, So I always thought, and this is where I kind of was, I'm like, is this really worth it? Your heart's a muscle.
Right. Yeah.
It kind of needs water, so.
Might be helpful.
Yeah.
So how do you decide what path to take next? Do you talk to your parents? Do you talk to your family? Like, how do you
Well, at this point, I'd met Dale.
Okay.
And we were engaged at that point.
How do you propose? On a barbell or something?
No, at a bar.
At a bar? Okay.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, P.S. Chicago. I don't even think that's there anymore. And we were both doing it at the time. But the other thing about bodybuilding and that it's a selfish sport. You can't go out with your friends. And if you do go out, I mean, Dale and I would be going to weddings with Tupperware.
Yeah.
You're eating because you don't trust people to cook for you. So it gets old.
Yeah.
It's a very selfish sport. So, we got married and I did my last show right before we got married. And then I just I want to have a life.
Yeah.
We want to go out. We want to go to dinner, You don't want to.
Wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Drink, have some beers, have pizza. So that's really when I didn't do it anymore. And that was 1991.
So 1991, do we find like a more casual gym? Are we doing walks with other people?
So we were still lifting, just more casual lifting. And I think that's when I kind of started running a little bit.
Okay.
Walking with friends. And then we moved to Batavia, I think Nathan was a baby. So it was like 98. So 1998, so now we floundered around for a few years. In 98, I moved to Batavia and met a running group.
Okay.
And that's when I kind of got it started. In fact, I know your mom was at the gym that I was going to.
Yeah.
And
hey, that place still there.
I know.
I always drive. I'm like, is it? Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah. Still there. That's
still
great.
There. So
how do you find a running group? Do you is it like on a billboard, like at the gym, or how do you find a running group?
I joined that gym and then met up with some of the guys there, and they just said, hey, on Tuesdays and Thursdays we run.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. So, I show up and they do this. They had this one loop that they always did. And then I think on Saturdays they did longer runs because most of them were marathon runners.
Okay.
So then that's when, I got that seed. I'm like, I'm going to run a marathon. So I went from I'm going to bodybuild to I'm going to run a marathon. So I started running with these guys. And I remember the first time I'm on this little loop and I'm all excited. I'm like, I can do this. Look at all the stuff I've done. Oh my God, they buried me. And I was just like huffing and puffing. And I'm like, there's no way I can run a marathon.
Yeah.
This was 3 miles. And I don't even, it was rough. But so I ran with them for a while. And then I can't remember when my first marathon was.
So after that mile, do you come home and tell Dale, hey, I think I'm going to do a marathon, or what?
Yeah, he just, shakes his head. Okay, dear.
So what are you doing for work at that point? What did we transfer to?
At that point, I'm home.
Okay.
I'm home with Nathan.
Nice.
Yeah, I was an at-home mom. I was very lucky. I was at home with both kids until, 2012, 2013.
So what was it like being a stay-at-home mom? Did you have like a routine where you felt like, I had a wonderful day, or like, because Jessica and I are both stay-at-home parents, and I feel like I will talk to my mom and she's like, we flew in at We got in at like 7 a.m. and then I went for a run and then we have dinner with friends. I'm like, we ate 3 meals. She was in her PJs and like I feel like we're still working on it. And there's 2 of us at home.
It's hard when they're little. Okay. It's hard when they're little. So we did have a routine. Okay. Kids need a routine.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always thought that. And we were very lucky to have neighbors that had kids the same age.
Oh, great.
So we, my neighbor Lori and I would take the kids for bike rides, pop them in the Burley, load them up with snacks. We'd ride to... Our favorite park to go to was, we called it the train park, but it was the park in Geneva, kind of by Millrace Inn, under that train track. So there was a park there. And the kids loved it because of the trains, when they would come over. And so we would play with them there for a while and then bike back, and then they'd be exhausted, so they'd nap, and you get some stuff done around the house. But so my routine was basically, if I was going to work out, it was, I got, I think you got like an hour or 2 hours at the gym in the daycare. Yeah. So I would do that. Or I would do it early in the morning.
Okay.
And cause the runners would still run, before work. Mm-hmm. So it was early in the morning.
So when you're finishing a night or a day, putting the kids down, do you feel a sense of like, hey, I had a great day, or what was the ideal? Like, hey, today was phenomenal.
Tired.
Yeah.
I thought all days were, I think they were all pretty good. I felt very fortunate that we had good days. I do. I feel like, the boys were challenging. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
And, there's days where you're like, oh. Kyle was challenging just because he was like Houdini, and he was always missing. So I was always having to close down stores and things like that. But I always felt like we had a good days. Yeah. And it was, I enjoyed the summers with them, but it was when they went back to school, it was nice too.
Yeah.
So I didn't feel like I was one of those moms like, oh, they got to go to school or I'm going to lose it. Yeah. I had moments, but I felt like we had good times. Yeah. We did a lot.
So what's things that your parents did that you're like, hey, I definitely want to do this with my kids that you did?
I think the whole, like, just being at the pool. Like, we were at the quarry all the time. I think, just...
Did they ever get too cold when they were young?
The boys? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we went, she's still, like, the same.
Yeah, like the quarry can be cold. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
For her birthday, we took her to a pool, and it was indoor. And... she was in for like 15 minutes. She loved it, but she was turning blue. And I'm like, you gotta get out. We're gonna warm you up. But like, as summer's coming, the quarry's gonna open, but it doesn't really warm up there because they're always having to pump in new stuff.
I know.
So and if she's older, absolutely. But we're looking.
Yeah, is there little? I remember, so it was a quarry, but I think when they were real little, I remember doing West Chicago pool.
Okay.
Potawatomi, maybe.
Yeah, in St. Charles.
Yeah, so we were in a pool for a while, and then they wanted the quarry.
Okay.
Because they want the sand. They want the lake effect, I guess, is what they really wanted.
Yeah, in the back over there, I will tell everybody, but I always thought there was an alligator in that like fenced off little area in the back, and I'm trying to figure out who told me, and I'm like, did anybody else hear this rumor?
No.
Maybe it's been just me. But I like the Potawatomi or something like that. Then we'll go to the quarry once she has enough body fat on her to keep her warm.
Yeah. But then, the good thing about the quarry too is you have that kind of zero depth where it is cold, but you just have this much water, but you can play with your sand toys, and it's not where you're just deep in the cold water.
Absolutely. So when you get into doing marathons, are you like, hey, I want to hit this specific time? Or you're just like, hey, this is kind of my thing now. This is what I'm going to do.
So my first marathon, I just wanted to finish, and that's literally what I did.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't bad. I think it was just over 4 hours, but it was brutal.
Is it more, would you say, mentally or physically taxing on you?
Both.
Okay.
Both.
How do you work through the mental aspect?
You just you keep going. Yeah, you're like, Well, so whether it was the marathon, I mean, and after the marathon, I started getting into triathlons and, did some Ironmans. Mm-hmm. It's just, you get to a point where, all right, I can quit. Yeah. But I've put all this time in, all this training, right. All this effort. I have DNF'd a couple races, for basically reasons where I was so cramped up, I couldn't move. Right. You do what you got to do. But otherwise I would talk myself into just go. Mm-hmm. You're not going to die. You're not dead yet. You're not going. Yeah.
Well, I was training for when Josh put on the rowathon. I did it. I wrote it myself, but as I was training for it, the max I could hit was an hour. Just mentally, I wasn't even tired because I was going at a slow pace. Like my goal was just to finish before everybody packed up their rower, and I would only make it like an hour. Like I'd be listening to a podcast, like enjoying it, but I just like mentally, it'd be like 3 seconds of bad self-talk. I'm like, I'm out. It's like that's it. Nope, I got nothing to prove. I'm getting out of here. But with having all those people around me, I was like, that helped so much.
Yeah. By yourself, it's. But then I always, and I coached triathlon for years. Yeah. I thought the by yourself training was the best because you really are, even though you've got people around. Yeah. You still have to finish it. Yeah. So if you can finish it, if you can train by yourself and get through that. Yeah. You can get through a race. You can get through a rowathon,
Yeah. So you finish just over 4, do we immediately go for, we want to beat 4, or do you go more triathlon pace?
So, no, I didn't want to do another one ever again. I was like, that was awful. Mm-hmm. It was just, when they always talk about the wall in a marathon, which is the 20-mile point. Okay. So between mile 20 and 21, you do hit a wall. Okay. And you literally have a 10K left.
So is it a mental wall, a physical wall?
Both. Okay. It's a physical wall, and it's so hard. I find it very hard to train for a marathon correctly because you don't really want to run 26 miles in training, but you got to get so many 20 milers in at least, or maybe some 22 milers in. So, but then you're also up against possibly getting injured, so it's just a lot of fine line training, and you have to be very careful with it. So most people go into that marathon undertrained, and that's why you're hitting that wall, because your body's like, I've never gone over 20 miles. Oh, okay. So I think that's a lot of it. And then it is mental, you're like, I've been out here for 3 hours or right. more than that at that point. And it's rough. Are you eating more or less training for a marathon than you were for bodybuilding? It's different eating. Okay. So you should still, I don't care what you do. I don't care if you walk, you bodybuild, you swim, you do triathlons. You have to eat protein because you have tear down. Yeah. You have tear down just cleaning your house. It's your muscles are working, so you have to have protein. Yeah. The amount of protein you have to have is then dependent on your sport. Yeah. If you're a bodybuilder, you're probably over a gram per pound. Okay. So if you weigh 100 pounds and you want to be a serious bodybuilder, you're probably doing 120, 130 grams. Mm-hmm. If you're just walker and you're just trying to stay fit, you're probably just a little under that. You know, so for endurance training, it was at least getting all that protein in, but getting a good amount of carbohydrates. You had to keep your glycogen, everything just kind of built up, because if you didn't have that, you're just tearing down muscle tissue. If you don't have carbohydrate stores to work with. So for the bodybuilding, it's more so you're breaking down the muscles and you need the protein to rebuild. And for the marathons, is we have this amount of fuel, as in our carbohydrates, and once we run out of our liver glycogen, our muscle glycogen, then our next fuel source is muscle. And we don't want that. No. So you have to keep, protein in just to keep the muscles, keep building your muscles from the tear down of just endurance training. Right. But you need a lot more carbohydrates and fat. Yeah. You need good fats.
Yeah, I had a friend that she did her master's in dietetics, and she's like, yeah, you got to have at least 20% fat just for injury reduction. I'm like, wait, I thought that was for protein for the muscles. It's like fat's the lubricant for your body. I was like, oh my God, there's so much information.
I mean, people complicate it. I feel like, if you can eat a diet of, again, depending on what kind of athlete you are, you're still going to eat fat, carbohydrates, and protein. That ratio might change.
Right.
But I don't care who you are. You need it.
Yeah. So how do you fuel properly, or how did you fuel properly for a marathon? Because last I heard, it's like 45 minutes to an hour of liver glycogen, and then you're going into your muscles, and then I don't know how much is in there, but like you get rid of that store pretty quickly.
You do.
So how do you
keep it? The minute you go to a start line of an endurance race, you're behind the 8 ball.
Okay.
Because you can't fuel enough to keep up. So you have to go in pretty full. So you have to have all those stores kind of built up. So that's where some of that, people call it carb loading, spaghetti dinner, Do you have to overdo that? I don't think so. I mean, your body can only process so much.
Right.
So you just have to make sure that you aren't depleted.
Yeah.
So you don't have to overeat. You don't have to eat a big spaghetti dinner. You don't have to, but you definitely have to make sure that you're kind of topped off.
Yeah.
So that when you cross that finish line, because if you think about it, when you cross the start line, you're running and you're not getting anything in probably for, I think they have aid stations like every mile and a half.
Okay.
But then you're getting you can't run and eat a meal.
Right.
You can't, so you have to take what you can just to kind of, again, get the stores back to a little bit of a level, but nothing.
Right. It's not like you can just drink honey and then 5 seconds later it's a fuel source. Like
right.
It takes some time.
It takes some time, and it's not a lot. You can't do a lot.
Yeah.
You can only take, if you're taking any more than 4 to 6 ounces of liquid, every 10 to 15 minutes, you're going to be sloshy, you're going to throw up,
Yeah.
So you just have to, and then you have to find a kind of a good balance between hydration, because you need hydration, so you don't dehydrate, and calories.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of drink your calories a little bit or take a goo. Or a honey stinger, there's all these different things you can take.
Right.
Some people eat.
Yeah.
Like in Ironmans, you eat. I have to eat. I had to eat certain things. But you can't overeat because you're going to throw up.
Right.
You can't undereat because then you're not going to have anything to go off of. The marathon is a little different. You're just probably sticking more to liquid calories and some goos and things like that.
So how many calories do you think you're taking in during a marathon? Like intra. Like how many do you think you're?
You can usually get in, depending on the person, I don't know, 200 to 400 calories an hour.
Oh, okay.
Maybe.
So barely keeping up with what you're
but your output is, a lot more than that. That's what I'm saying. You're behind the 8 ball already, and you can't eat to keep up. I mean, you can't fuel enough to, just keep even, but you have to fuel enough just to keep going.
Right.
You can't process, I don't think, more than that.
Yeah. So when you finish, are you feeling good, or does it take you like a week to kind of get back to normal?
After a marathon or like an Ironman?
We'll go marathon first.
Okay. I'd say a solid, I think they say it takes a full 30 days to recover.
Okay.
From something like that, but you feel pretty good after about a week.
Okay.
But your muscles are still pretty,
pretty
takes
beat up.
them, So you want to take it down.
Yeah.
These people who do, marathons back to back to back to back.
I had a gentleman, his name I believe is Mark Dougal. I think I should have just said Mark. He's doing a marathon or a calendar club. So it's whatever day of the month it is. So it says January 1st, he does 1 mile. January 2nd, he does 2 miles. So he'll finish off on 31 or whatever it is.
And then he starts over?
Yeah. So this month, next month is his last one. So he will have done 12 months in a row. And it's
That's brutal.
Yeah, sometimes he just takes pictures. He's like, oh, this is where I slept in the forest. Like, I had to lay down, take a nap. And it's like, okay, just getting after it.
There's endurance athletes out there that, they can do that, but I just don't think it's the best thing for your body.
Well, so speaking of not the best thing for your body, how'd you get into Ironman? Like, was there an Ironman club at River West?
No, there was not. I'm just crazy. You know, I kind of missed my swimming. So I started swimming.
Were you I guess you were at the pool a lot with the kids.
Yeah, I was at the pool a lot with the kids. But then I can't remember the series of events. Gosh, you're taxing my brain here, my older brain. I just remember, starting out running, and then you just meet people. Okay. And then I met
those
some
bad
people.
Influences.
I know, it was crazy. They got me into some bad stuff here, good bad stuff. So, and then I think I met some people, who were doing triathlons, and then I got into the triathlon club, and so then you start swimming, not just recreationally, right? But and I am like, I do miss the swimming, I do miss it. And it was really hard for me to get back into the swimming because I think of all the, kind of the muscular, right. It's just like my shoulders were, they're already compromised. And then I'm, asking them to do, wing them around again. Ugh. But, so and then I did my first triathlon, I think it was called Try. And I think it was in Oswego. Okay. I didn't have a bike, so I borrowed a bike, which was way too big for me. And we swam in a pool, which was super easy. Yeah. And you biked around a neighborhood, which was super easy, but my bike was too big. And then you ran, I don't know, a mile or 2 miles.
Oh, you must love that run.
And I won.
That's fantastic. I won.
And I'm like,
not even on my bike.
Okay, we're gonna do this.
Yeah, that's a good hype. That pumps you up.
So then I started. There were some women races, like the Danskin. They have a bunch of women races, and I did some of those, and those were fun. And
were you winning those too, or?
I would place okay. Yeah. In my age group, I did okay. I was a good age grouper. Yeah. My goal, as I got, into it more and more and more, and then you do a half, and then I'm like, I'm going to do a full, and then I'm going to do another full, and then I want to qualify for Kona, and I never qualified for Kona. Okay. So that was something I really, truly wanted to do, and I felt like I trained really hard. I had a good coach. Yeah. And my last Ironman was 2012. I think it was in Idaho. And I felt really like I've got this. Yeah. But I got really messed up in the swim because the water was 51 or 52 degrees. A little chilly. And my body just couldn't handle it. So.
Yeah. Probably not too much body fat on you at that point.
No, I was pretty thin at that point, and I think it was like my worst swim time ever, and I just feel like they had hot tubs that you could get in as you got out of the water on that race, and in hides, and I didn't change any of my clothes. I just got on the bike wet, and I just think that set me up bad.
So as far as qualifying for Kona, what does that take to go there?
Well, it's kind of dependent on who's in your age group. Okay. So because at least I don't know, it could be different now. I mean, it's been over 10 years. Mm-hmm. Back then you only have so many Kona slots per race. Okay. And then depending on the age group, so if you have a small age group, you may only have one slot available.
So you would have to find the correct race and keep racing to then get the slot from that race.
Yes. Okay. You have to let's just say there were 3 slots for my age group. So
in that race or just in general?
In that race. Okay. And I placed 5th. Mm-hmm. So sometimes they have a roll down. Okay. Person number 1, she's already got a place, so she doesn't need it. So then it rolls down. Okay. Or they don't want to take it or whatever, So that's another way to qualify. You may not have gotten the exact slot, but it rolled down. Oh, okay. Usually the guys' age groups had more slots because they were bigger. So again, it's a percentage
Okay.
They may have had 10 entries available because their age groups were bigger.
Okay.
Where my age group might have been smaller, so I mainly had 1 or 2 entries available. Mm-hmm. So Kona was hard. Kona was hard to get into. So you had to be really on top of your game. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I just didn't, you know, I probably didn't have it.
Is there enhancements going on at that point in triathlon or Ironman and stuff like that?
I'm sure.
Yeah. And what would that look like? Because you're not looking for like to build muscle. You're just looking to recover. And I feel like that's what a lot of people, they take enhancements as like, oh, they're just trying to get huge. Like they just want to be able to do more.
Yeah. It's so in bodybuilding enhancements, they do help you recover more because recovery is key for anything. So your muscle grows if you're recovered. Right. So that's part of it. In endurance sports, having that recovery is huge as well. So I think it helps you develop that engine that you need to go longer and stronger versus, you know, getting bigger. You're going the distance at a faster speed with not less effort, but you know, you're still putting the effort in, but you
just have a higher end. Yeah. So it's not as percentage wise, not as bad. So is this like race day they're taking stuff, or it's just like, what, do you have any idea of what people were taking?
I don't. I know there's been people that were tested in, you know, some of the top levels. I don't know them personally. Yeah. And again, as far as what they were taking, I'm not sure.
Yeah, because I think
it's got to be different than, you know, they're not taking like testosterone or, you know, things to, you know, bulk you up. Yeah. But there's something. There's definitely.
Well, I think the documentary Icarus was the guy he did the race because he was a journalist but also a serious biker. He did the race and then the following year he did a cycle with a professional. And he was actually the doping guy in Russia.
I saw that.
Yes. That was a wild documentary.
That was very wild.
That happened, like, that it fit perfectly that he was working with them while everything went down. I was like, the timing, like, he was just going to have a nice small documentary at first. And then that thing really blew up.
Yeah.
So it just seemed like it was unhealthy for those guys to not be on something at that point, just as far as like recovery and your body breaking down. And like you said, you can't keep up with those calories. And if you're riding or doing an Ironman for X amount of time, like it's hell on your body.
It is. And Ironman is even worse because if you think about it, you know, even in a marathon or, you know, some kind of a bike race or a run race, you can get nutrition in pretty quickly. Yeah. In the swim, you're out there for over an hour.
That's wild.
So you've got nothing going in for an hour, you know, at least. Some people are out there 2 hours, you know. So when you think of it that way.
How far is the swim?
2.4 miles.
I swam a mile and some change at Flathead Lake. My cousin, he went on a run earlier. Like we did a workout and then he went on a run later. I was like, oh man, like I missed the workout. Let me know if you're going out later. And he's a little scrawny guy, like does rock climbing and stuff like that, but just in general, good shape. And he's like, oh, I'm going for a swim. Like, perfect. Let's just go for a little swim. And he's like, I'm going to see how far I can get. And the farthest anybody in the house had done in the last like 20, 30 years is just to swim to the other side of the lake. Like you can see straight across. And I think it's a mile and some change. And I'm like, great. He's going to swim for like 15, 30 minutes. We swim like halfway. He's like, yeah, I think we can go the whole way. And I'm over here just dying. I'm ducking my head every time. My traps and delts, everything is just lit up. And he's just looking around, just chatting with the guy in the kayak with us. And it was well over an hour for me to do like a mile and some change. And I was lit up. How do you, I guess... Is it just volume and time getting used to swimming that much? Or that's just...
Yeah. It's like any training. So again, like when you run and you're running long distance, you got to train long distance. With swimming, in all training, and again...
But like swimming, you can't coast. There's no like...
There's tricks to swimming though, especially when you're in open water. you try and find someone who's just a little bit faster than you.
Okay.
And then you swim in their wake.
All right, Carla, I'm going to need you to come to Montana with us. I'm going to need you to be right in front of me. It's going to make it much easier.
So it's kind of fun. You find someone that's just, again, a little bit faster, and you swim right at their feet, like where their bubbles are, and then you just don't want to touch them because then they get pissed. But and then that you're kind of in there, like a boat wake.
Yeah.
And there's I don't know the percentage, 20-30% savings, maybe.
Is that legal? Because I know for the bike you can't.
No, you can't draft on a bike, but swim, yeah.
So in swim, it would probably just be too hard to dock people, or to be like, "Hey, slow down." Or
they're not. As far as I know, there's never been any rules for drafting and swimming.
Gotcha.
And it's very hard not to draft in swimming, because you're all starting most. They've changed this too, I think, for safety reasons, where they do like a time start, like every 3 seconds somebody goes off.
Oh, okay.
But otherwise, if it's a mass start, you're all starting together. So
that just looks like you're looking to drown. Like that just.
It can be. You have to. Like when I was coaching, I would always, the swim is the worst for everybody. For most people, I had really no problem with it.
Yeah.
But most people, the swim is the worst, and the scariest is the start.
Mm-hmm.
So you just have to make sure you're putting yourself in a good position, because you don't want your race to end at the beginning.
Right.
So if you're a strong swimmer, you want to get out and get in. You want to get in the front, and you want to get out, because otherwise you're going to get hung up.
Okay.
And you're going to hurt somebody.
Yeah.
Because you're just going to be swimming over people.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not a strong swimmer, and you're more of a weak swimmer, and you're really nervous, then wait.
Okay.
Just wait.
Yeah.
The swim is at the end of the day of an Ironman, the swim is the shortest part of the day.
Yeah.
So, but it's the most stressful for so many people. So, I always try to talk people backwards, like, just this is the shortest part of your day. And if you just feel like you can't, get into the mix, then stay back and just take that extra time.
Yeah.
It'll be added onto your time, but so be it.
So when you're training somebody and you want them to do their swim, for pacing wise, obviously there's a pace. They could go really quick and then be dead when they come out of the water. How do you tell them to go slow but not too slow? How do you figure out what that pace is?
It's kind of a RPE at that point,
a
rate of perceived exertion. So you do a lot of that type of training, so you can get into like a groove, where your heart rate's at. Not that you're looking at it, but you can feel it, where your breathing's at, So it's a lot of trusting that, because if you're huffing and puffing the whole time in the swim, your heart rate's been super high, you're really kind of setting yourself up for a little bit of disaster.
So then when you get on the bike, and we'll say the bike's not your strong point and you want to have a low RPE, are you just not necessarily just chilling, but you're just keeping at whatever you're
the bike is and it depends on the course. If it's a flat course, I honestly felt like flat courses were sometimes a little bit harder because you're always pedaling.
Okay.
Hilly courses, you have the hills, but you also have the break and the downhills.
Gotcha.
So it's you get a little bit of a reprieve.
Yeah.
But with hilly courses, and you're not a strong biker, you just have to make sure your gearing is right and you're controlling your climb.
Okay.
Like sit, stand, use different muscles. Use your glutes and your hamstrings for a few minutes, then use your quads, and then, go back and forth between that. Keep your breathing under control. Make sure you're in an easy gear. And then when you get to the top of that hill, just coast, just coast down, get your breathing back, get your heart rate back down, and then just get back into cruise. The thing about an Ironman, and the other important thing is the bike is where you take in your most calories. That's where you really have to set yourself up.
Yeah.
Because if you're not taking in your calories and your hydration on that bike, your marathon's going to be miserable, or you're not going to make it.
Mm-hmm. So what was your favorite experience while traveling for these Ironmans? Was it the destinations, or was it doing the race?
Honestly, it was the destination and the group.
Okay.
Like the group was so much fun. Like you did all your training with a group. You did, I did a lot of running on my own, but the biking, we would go out as a group. Swimming, you swam, with the master's team or whatever. Or we did open water swims together.
Yeah.
The destination was fun. Like I did Arizona one year.
Okay.
Super hot. Oh, it was miserable. That was a harsh race for a lot of reasons, but it was fun, to go there. Idaho is beautiful. Yeah. I mean, if the water hadn't been so cold, I think it would have been a really good race.
Yeah.
But very hilly, mountainous. I think it's just, at least for me, I was part of a really good group.
So make sure in life when you're doing things, have a good group of friends.
You know what? When you're doing something like that, I think the tri groups and the running groups and those are and we did stuff. We did stuff socially. We had parties. We we trained. Early hours. In the winter, you're on trainers. You drag your trainer to somebody's house and you ride in their garage or their basement or whatever.
Suffer together and then in party when you're going to party.
Yeah, so it's definitely a big part of it.
Mm-hmm. So what did you do outside of like the training? Did you really enjoy throwing parties, or like what was that scene like for you?
No, I think we just enjoyed going out.
Yeah.
Just like we always had a big end of the year party and go to a bar and just, do stupid little awards and, gag stuff. We would do sometimes people's homes, they would open up their homes and we'd do stuff. I didn't really like hosting things, but it's a lot of work to host.
For vacations, did it revolve around an Ironman the kids would come with?
Sometimes, and that got old too. I mean, there were times I tried not to do it too much. Like I didn't want my family there, It's too much. It's especially an Ironman for little kids.
Right.
Way too much.
Yeah, Mom will be back in 3 hours. Yeah. She'll wave again in another 3 hours.
They came to my first one and that was fun. Yeah. But no other ones. Yeah. It's too much.
Jessica and I and Adeline, we went to Kona and we showed up, and that day, there was a tent set up, and it turned out to be that was the Ironman was going on the next day.
So you went in October.
Yeah, and it was like 5:15 a.m. The drum started or whatever early time. Adeline was still on Illinois time, so she was up. And I'm like, this is perfect. I'm going to be just dragging you around, and we're going to go watch these ladies just run around and swim and do whatever it was. But I got tired after like 3 hours just walking around that place. Yeah, I'm just like, this is unbelievable.
It's hard for spectators. It really is. I mean, we're being, people in the race are being given stuff and, kind of catered to.
Yeah.
Not that you're not working, but you guys aren't. Nobody's giving you food.
True.
Here's some Gatorade.
Yeah. I was able to go back to the hotel and nap for a little while, which was nice. So after Idaho, what was the conversation with yourself or with Dale, or what happened?
CrossFit.
There? Yeah.
That's when we got into CrossFit.
So who dragged you into that? Dale? Okay.
Yeah.
What was his discovery into that?
Well, again, Dale was always a lifter. Yep. He enjoyed the lifting. He did a marathon. He's definitely
Dale did a marathon?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. God. He was a one and done.
That's wild.
He was so funny. He's like, yeah, I knew I was in bad shape when the guy in the chicken costume passed me.
Yes. That's fantastic. Did you tell him, hey, Dale, I'll coach you. It'll work out great.
Yeah, no. Yeah, you don't coach your spouse. No, he did pretty good, but it was an accomplishment. He wanted to do it. But, Dale's always liked the lifting.
Yeah.
Always liked the lifting. So was Olaf the first gym?
So was
it Olaf?
Olaf was in not Sugar Grove, Elburn, and then it came to the Batavia spot.
That's right. It was in somebody's garage. Was it in?
No, it was at the where I guess it's not there anymore, but right next to the 7-Eleven. That was the first place I think I remember seeing you guys.
Yeah, but when it was in the garage, it was in somebody's, like before it came to Batavia, it was in someone's garage, wasn't it?
I think it was in Dwayne's garage or something, garage. And then they had a little spot out in Elburn. It was just like maybe the size of this first floor right here. They had a garage. They had a spot there for a short time. Then they're like, oh, we're moving. I'm like, no. They're like, yeah, there's a little place in Batavia. I'm like, that's 3 blocks from my house. That's fantastic. Because I met Kyle and Dwayne and some of the guys and Brad from the rugby team. And they're like, hey, you're kind of like skinny fat. We can fix that. And I'm like, absolutely. I was playing competitive table tennis before I started playing rugby, so whatever you got. And like, I went home and searched CrossFit, and it was like Rich Frowning working out. I was like, I'm gonna look like this guy. Awesome, this is fantastic. But yeah, then you guys walked into the gym, and immediately people are like, "What's benching?" Like, and it was hilarious because you guys would walk in and just dominate some of the lifts and the workouts. Like, and then Dale was always a hoot having there. So
he was fun.
When you started CrossFit, what did you think about these guys flopping around on the bars and burpees and all that stuff?
So it was different. It was again back to my love of strength, but way different. Yeah, way different. I mean, just the whole kipping pull-ups and climbing a rope and snatches, and I'm like, I clean and jerks. It just was, and I still to this day, and I can't do CrossFit anymore. Just my body doesn't work that way. Yeah. But I just couldn't get some of the the right, like using your hips,
movement patterns.
Yeah, movement patterns, and just the weight should just go up. Well, no, it doesn't.
Just like the butterfly.
Yeah, yeah. I can do that, but I can't. Yeah. No, I was always one that, I'm like the one, lifting everything with my upper body.
Muscle snatch.
Yeah. I'm like, so yeah, you saw it over and over.
One of my favorite memories was Kyle was like, hey, we should do like some more fun warm-ups and stuff like that. And we would do you got to hold the ab mat and like knock it over. And if you didn't do it, you had to do other stuff. And you were the first person to ever do this. And you're like, I'm not doing that. I'm going to go warm up on the bike. And I was like, but this is so much fun. And I was like, that's hilarious.
I remember
I still remember that.
It was you and Brad and I don't know.
Angelo, Tim.
Yeah. You guys were throwing the medicine or the 20-pound wall ball.
Yeah. Over boxes.
And then you would run. Wouldn't you run to catch it or something? I don't know. You guys.
It was like volleyball with a medicine ball. We were throwing them. Yeah, that was a fun time.
Like somebody's gonna die.
Yeah, no, that was a great time there. So when you got into it, like, what was your expectation, or was it similar to what you did in all your stuff? You're like, I'm just gonna have fun here.
I want to compete.
You want to compete? Okay.
I think I'm just a born competitor.
Yeah.
Just give me something to do. Give me a, get me on that podium.
Yeah.
So, but I also wanted to improve. I wanted to, all the workouts, as you scale. Yeah. I always wanted to RX things, but there's certain things you can't RX. I can't do muscle ups. I couldn't do certain things. So, but I tried to. I think my goal was always to try and RX stuff. And Kyle was very protective too. He's nobody's going to get hurt.
Well, yeah, that was the thing. I've been to a bunch, probably 50, 60 gyms since I started doing CrossFit. But Kyle was one of the, if not the pickiest coach ever as far as form. Yeah. Not getting
injured. Which is good.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
It was a great place to start, yes. Because if I had gone to any other gym, I think I would have been in the hospital in traction.
Yeah. Well, and that's the tough thing. Like we were talking beforehand, it's very tough for a CrossFit gym to make money. And if you want to keep your clients happy and like their form goes a little bit, they're whining, they don't like you coaching them as much. Yeah, do whatever you want. That's fine. Yeah. But like things go poorly, and in CrossFit, they go poorly.
Yeah. Well, CrossFit, you have to be, super careful. In CrossFit, you can't ignore the little things in your muscles, which you're going to when you're in a class trying to RX.
Oh, absolutely.
So you're, all the big muscle groups take over, and all the little guys are, just kind of like in the wings being like, okay, we're going to break. Okay, we broke. we're done.
Yeah. Well, and I think that was I cannot say more good things about Kyle and his programming, his coaching. It was, hey, this is the workout. This is the stimulus of the workout. Like, it could be a AMRAP for 15 minutes of a heavy deadlift, muscle up, and this, and be like, oh, I can get one round of RX. But Kyle would be like, hey, I want you to do a light deadlift, a push up, and a squat, so that you can get the stimulus that I'm looking for out of this.
Right. He was definitely very much behind the scenes of why you should be doing things and building the right engine and building the right form and developing, the right technique. And you don't get that in a lot of places.
And he got phenomenal coaches when he got Brad, Timbo, Britt, and then pulled Angelo out of a hat. I don't know how he got him, but I still talk to him every once in a while. But he was a collegiate gymnast.
Yeah. I was like, we're learning a lot.
He showed up to the gym, and Kyle's like, he's a gymnast. He's going to go do his warm-up. And I still remember he went up to the wall and just like did a cartwheel. His chest was on the wall, and then like he was adjusting stuff on his phone while still in a handstand. I was like, oh, this guy's different. Like, this is new things. What did you enjoy so much about CrossFit? Like, what was exciting to you the most?
I think just really the level you could push your body to. And it was more in those like AMRAP workouts or those, like the staples, like Karen and Fran, and you are literally balls to the wall. Like, you're pushing yourself in a whole different way. I had come from, long drawn out endurance, which is hard in itself, but this was like, there were days where I'm doing a 7-minute workout and I'm like, I'd rather be doing a 12-hour Ironman, because it's just, it's gut wrenching. It's like, if you do it right and you're doing it, to your full potential, you're going all out. So I enjoyed that, like, really testing that kind of thing. I enjoyed, the heavy lifting, like the staples, like squat and front squat and deadlift. And I just, some of the stuff I just couldn't get. And I enjoyed, I think the fun thing about, I guess, coming from, the group setting of triathlon and going back to the gym with another group setting was huge. It was a good transition because now I'm in the gym and it's me,
right?
And that's, I'm okay with it because CrossFit, my body won't,
right.
It just won't do it anymore. But, I think that was a lot of fun too. The friends that we made, the relationships,
there was never a CrossFit barbecue that was a bad time.
No. And just, the competitions, the in-gym competitions were so fun. I enjoyed, I got back into the running because we were doing a lot of running, which was nice.
Yeah. Kyle was unnecessarily well-rounded with his programming.
I
would have liked to just be able to dominate in some areas and just write other stuff off.
I know. But so then I went over to leverage. And that was hard. Like, it was hard to leave, but I just knew I think I needed to do it. And, I was there for a while and then just realized I just can't do this. My body, my shoulders, just can't handle it.
So from going from endurance training where it's multiple hours a day to CrossFit where it's an hour a day, what'd you do with all that extra time?
Probably things I should have been doing when I was riding my bike. I've always done something. Like, I was never a full-time worker till like 2013. But, like, I coached, I trained, I did stuff like that. So I probably had more clients.
Okay. So when you're coaching, what was your favorite part about coaching when you were doing it?
Honestly, my favorite part about coaching right now is the one-on-one personal training that I do at the gym.
Nice.
I love picking someone apart because they don't even realize,
right?
That, for probably most people, but I work mainly with women, that glute medius, that little glute medius is so weak and it's not engaging and it just messes everything up, or, you've got this hip that's doing this and you've got, your quads, everybody's got overdeveloped quads, so nobody wants to do their hamstrings and glutes. And I just love, building those up. So I love the one-on-one. I think I did love the triathlon training, but a lot of it was online. Well, it was all online, unless I was coaching a master swim practice or a bike class or running a track workout. So you're not with the people. Right. I can write workouts all day, but and people will fill in with, are they really filling in what they're doing? Right. So I love the one-on-one.
Okay.
That's my favorite.
So you have a master's in being able to pick people apart, and then from there you're like, I know if you do this, you're going to get this result, and since I'm here, you're going to do this.
Yeah. Well, and that's why you have a trainer.
Yeah.
I mean, personal training is not cheap.
Yeah.
So you definitely want to give them their money's worth.
Yeah.
And anybody can come in and push you through a workout,
right.
But I like to just pick it apart.
Yeah.
And just make sure they're doing it right.
So how do you define what's best for the client? Do they come to you with goals and then you're like, those are silly goals, we're going to do this? Or how do you figure that out?
You don't ever want to discourage somebody.
Right.
Everybody's goal is important.
Yeah. So
I personally don't like having like bodybuilding clients.
Okay.
That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of expectation. That's a lot of, I don't enjoy it as much. I just like having people that come in and, like, I have this one guy and I've had him now for a little over, I think it's over a year, but he came in and this poor guy, his neck was like this and he's hunched over and he couldn't even lay back on the bench.
Oh no.
And he's squatting now. I mean,
really?
He's,
let's go.
But I mean, just watching somebody.
Up in the video, it shows him getting better.
just watching somebody go from coming in and being like kind of hurting and just being kind of deflated.
Yeah.
So as far as maybe his goal was just to get stronger, or somebody, like I've got people that want to develop certain parts of their body, and that's fine, So I never discourage the goal, but when you talk to people, as long as you kind of talk, in a way that you're interjecting what you think they need,
right.
but it can still meet what their goal is.
That's fantastic.
Nobody's goal is stupid, but it might be the approach might be different to get there.
Okay.
So we'll get there, and maybe your goal will change.
Yeah.
Maybe what you think you want isn't what you want, but we're going to start here because I see this going on.
Gotcha.
And then we'll get there.
So when you had that older client, did you have enough like corrective exercises or like break down how you got him to where he is?
So it was a lot of super easy stuff in the beginning, a lot of stretching, a lot of band work, a lot of core.
Okay.
And core isn't a six pack. Core is, your whole torso, front, back, sides, glutes, hips. So it was a lot of just developing him so he had stability to work off of. Okay. A lot of people come in and they have this idea in their head of what they want, but then you break them down and it's like, well, we're going to start here because to get here, you need this. Yeah. And it really comes down, a lot of it's core.
Yeah. Well, that's why I stopped going to the chiropractor. They put me through range of motion. They're like, this is not working properly. I was like, all right, you're right. I shouldn't come in here. I don't want to hear this negativity. It's like, I know I can't lift my leg properly. Leave me alone.
I mean, most people, they're not walking right. They're not, they're, unfortunately, we're so, computer and, I'm even just sitting here. I'm like, starting to fall forward, so you just have to get people, kind of into positions that they can work off of.
So how many days a week was he coming?
He was coming to me 3.
Okay.
Now he's down to 1.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we just do legs together once a week. Before that, it was like each body part we were really working, working the core, getting him, a little bit more flexibility.
Yeah.
Getting his range of motion, in his shoulders.
And was that like an hour each session, an hour and a half?
Hour.
Okay. So for, would you say 6 months, 3 times a week?
Yeah.
For about an hour.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound crazy though. Like, once again, if you're looking at social media, it's every day waking up at 4, stretching for 3 hours, and that sounds doable.
Yeah.
And 3 hours a week for 6 months.
Yeah. And
it sounds like it changed his life, like a fair amount.
Yeah. Now, outside of that, he was probably doing, I always recommend to people to move. Mm-hmm. Whether you're working with me or you're working with, whoever, whatever you do, move. Yeah. Just move. You got to move every day. Mm-hmm. If you want to go for a walk, if you want to go for a run, you want to go for a bike ride, you want to do a lifting session, you got to move. Mm-hmm.
Here is how usually when I'm talking to people about fitness is generally I ask them to look at the gym that they're in, usually a bodybuilding gym or like an export or something like that. Usually not a lot of old people. So, that old guy, well, yeah, like, cause there's only one of them or two of them. So whatever is going on longevity wise, probably not going to last at whatever that is. Like, I wonder what all those other people are doing. So figure out what other things people are doing that like you want to do as well. But most people are like, hey, I want to be aesthetic through the age 20 or 30. And then like 30s come around and then like, it's hard to move. And then it's like, I don't want to go to the gym anymore. It's just like, it seems to go away a little bit. I like CrossFit for the most part because you can scale and do things a lot consistently. Right. But then sometimes, like in your situation, like you got to find what works for you. Mm-hmm. So like for yourself, how do you figure out what works for you at this point?
So for me, this is my thinking now. Mm-hmm. And honestly, my thinking for a lot of my clients. As we age, muscle depletes. Mm-hmm. And it's
harder to keep on, for sure.
It's harder to keep on, but it's so important. Mm-hmm. It's more important at this position in your life than any other position in your life. So my goal for myself and a lot of my clients is just to maintain healthy structural muscle. Mm-hmm. So it's keeping joints healthy. It's keeping your back healthy. Mm-hmm. I think I look at seniors and I think a lot of times, they're falling because they don't have a good core. Mm-hmm. And they're breaking their hip. Mm-hmm. Or they're dislocating their knee. Or, you go to reach into a cabinet and you're throwing your back out. Yeah. You shouldn't be doing that.
Right.
So I want to be 70, 80.
Yeah.
God willing, 90.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be at the gym. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be making sure that my body is not, I don't need to, right now I might compete again because, I still have that edge, but if I don't, I want to be healthy.
Right. So as far as that goes, do you have like metrics to, hey, you need to be able to like hold on to this much for a kettlebell or hold on to a bar or standards that you want to get these people to, or is it like a certain range of motion? What do you look at as far as goals for longevity for them?
Everyone is different.
Okay.
Everyone is different. I started working with a new lady who she rides horses.
Okay.
So her strength we're working on.
Is she young or old?
She's older.
Okay. And riding horses still?
And skiing.
Wow.
And, so doing a lot of things.
Getting after it.
Yeah. So, but you can see where, just kind of, posture and, things, so you want to, as far as a metric, it may not be a metric, but it might just be getting them to stand up straighter and holding that position and developing that post chain. Mm-hmm. Post chain is just incredibly important. So a metric might be getting them to squat.
Okay. So if people listening to this right now, if they can't squat either ass to grass or to a chair, like what's the first test?
The first test is probably just getting them under, if they can handle it. And again, as you get older, the whole shoulder mobility thing.
Yeah.
If you have no issues with shoulder mobility, if we can get a bar, kind of get the bar on your back correctly so it's not sitting on your neck, and you can get it, onto that little shelf on your back, and we can get you so you're upright and you're looking in the right direction, and I don't think people should be squatting ass to grass anymore, especially as they get older. But if we can get you to almost parallel, and back up, and you feel good, and your knees aren't caving in, then start adding weight.
So if you get a broomstick, and you squat, and you're like, probably go see Carla. Get some.
But so squat may not be something that we start with.
Okay.
So a lot of times, I might start. I do start with, some basic kind of figuring out, are your adductors stronger than your abductors? Are your hamstrings stronger than your glutes? It's usually the way around. Is your glute medius even getting, are you engaging that at all?
Yeah.
Does your knee turn in? Does your foot turn out? What's going on? And if everything seems to be working right, then we develop good core. We develop, post-chain core without maybe squatting, but just, a lot of planks.
Yeah.
I do a ton of stuff with bands.
Okay.
A ton of stuff with bands. A lot of like you might hold a band in, like a resistance position, and then do something else with the other arm.
Okay.
So your core has to engage to make sure that this stays.
Yeah. Well, I think people underestimate stabilizing.
Totally. Yes.
Stabilizing. Is difficult.
Yes. So that's something that, again, someone's going to come into me and they need stabilizing, but they don't understand that that's what they need.
Right.
So we're working on that, but they're still meeting their goals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like my dad the other day, if he does listen to it, good. He should come see you. He was getting in the pool to help my nephew out, and like he almost took out my nephew because he almost fell into the pool. And I was like, no, this is not it. Like we gotta work on some things. So how do people find, like what gym are you at now?
I'm at Competitor's Edge in St. Charles.
Where is that?
St. Charles. It's right. So it's east of 25, just a couple blocks east of 25 on the north side. It's like a little industrial building. I know there's a plumber there. I think it's called Cedar Complex or something. I don't know.
Okay.
It's just in the back.
How'd you get hooked up with them?
So it was right during COVID, and I was in a frumpy state. I wasn't really doing anything.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think everybody was going through this, and I just wanted to get back into a gym.
Okay.
I hadn't been doing anything. I was working full time, just being frumpy. And so I heard about this gym, and then I found this, the woman who owned it, Nilsa, she's impressive. She's a pro bodybuilder. And so I kind of stalked her for a little bit online. I told her this, so if she were to listen, she knows. And then I went and met her and, toured the gym, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And then I hired her to coach me.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So she coached me for my show.
Yeah.
And then I started working over there for her. She doesn't own the gym anymore, but yeah.
How was the last show? What was it like getting back into it?
Interesting.
Yeah.
It was interesting. I mean, I transformed my body, and it was fun. It took a year. A full year. But it was just so different. I was so used to just, the old bodybuilding, and again, it's, all of these divisions. And
so it was different, the look you were going for, the training you were doing, what was different?
The show, the whole show. It's just a whole different atmosphere. And, it wasn't as hardcore.
Okay. What was the training as you remember, just less volume, or was there more like, hey, we're going to stick to this specifically, or what was it like having a coach?
No, it was, She pretty much didn't do. She did more of. I did my workouts.
Okay.
Pretty much, she and I would train legs together.
Gotcha.
Once a week. But she was more working with my nutrition.
Okay.
And posing.
Okay. So is posing just figuring out how to highlight the muscle group that you're focusing on?
Yes.
Okay.
Part of it, and just being able to stand correctly, so you're showing your best to the judge.
Okay.
Because when you're up on stage, you're under all these lights, and the judges are down here, so they're looking up. So you just have to make sure that, if you're like you said, if you're trying to show a certain muscle, you're showing it right, so that they can see the best, your best effort and your best position with that muscle. And it's different, posing, it's a little different than it was 30 years ago. But
so what would you define bodybuilding as far as is it striving for health? Is it striving for showing what the maximal potential of the body can look like? How would you describe bodybuilding in like a term, I guess? Because people are like, hey, look how fit they are, but if they lost another 2 pounds, they may die because there's no more body fat. Like, what would you describe bodybuilding as a competition for?
Kind of dumb. I say that loosely.
Yeah.
It's just it's not. I guess what I don't like about it is it's not the same.
Okay.
Because like I said in the beginning, every judge is different.
Right.
And they look at you like their body type might be some way that's what they're looking for. Mm-hmm. So I don't think I personally did it because I want to get back in shape, and I thought, well, this gives me a goal. I need a goal.
Okay.
So for me personally, doing it gets me to an end result, and that end result is a show.
Okay.
I'm not looking for. Everybody, I think, is different too. Do I need to build up something more than something else? Yes. Mm-hmm. What that is probably, hamstrings. I mean, again, quad dominant, all the major squatting we did, deadlifting. So, but I'm not so into it that I'm like, all right, I'm going to really work on this part of my shoulder, and I'm going to get this here, and I'm going to get this here, and I'm going to try and get my striations to come in here. I just want to, again, if I ever compete again, it'll just because I need that goal to kind of, give me that stimulus that seems to drive me.
Yeah.
I just want to be healthy.
Gotcha.
I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So and that ties in perfect for the last two questions. What's your definition of health? Not necessarily the dictionary definition, but what is health to you?
Health is being able to get up every day and do my day. Mm-hmm. And whether that's my job, working with my dogs, going to visit my kids, gardening, doing work around the house. I just want to be able to get up every day and get out of bed. And honestly, I feel very lucky that I can do that, because I know people get to, I'll be 57. So I'm getting to an age where I see my peers and they're not doing that.
Right.
They're doctors.
Yeah.
They're, so I just want to keep moving in the right direction where I'm fueling correctly. Food is medicine if you're eating the right foods.
Yeah.
Food is medicine. So I want to continue to eat well. I want to continue to be healthy. I want to continue to lift so that my muscles support, my body, and I can continue to do the things that I want to do.
Love it. And then what's something from your life that people listening to the podcast would be able to take away as a positive?
Never give up. You see something, go for it. Figure out how to do it.
Let's go. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.